Hello, everybody. This is Michael Zangara from the 28mm Wargaming Sci-fi show, and I'm gonna do another video on Frostgrave here. We're gonna talk about solo play, multiplayer options, scaling up the game, and different scenario ideas. So basically, let's talk. Excuse me. Let's talk about solo play. One of the things that I do when I want to do a solo play type scenario is I made a bunch of charts for randomization of where the treasure should go, where certain scenario pieces go, and you basically divide the board up into a grid and then roll, and then you place the piece and you place the treasure. Now, as far as an opponent, what I do is I create a monster warband. So say like if you have gnolls or barbarians, if you're using the North Star sets, or I've got a lot of orcs, and basically I'll write up a warband, and kind of level it close to where I'm at as far as the level goes, and then for the spells, I have two charts. I made a chart for how close you are. So there's spells that, like, where if there was spells that say like it was an orc shaman, if I could cast a spell to improve a stat, I would do that. If there's no line of sight and they do know you're there, but they can't reach any of your members, so they cast that type of spell. And then if there is line of sight, they cast an offensive spell. And basically I have them go and for the treasure, and then and try to attack my guys. And that's basically how I do solo play. Now you can do that with human wizards. You can do that with whatever miniatures you got. Best thing about this game is that it's totally miniature friendly, miniature neutral. So I do open above ground town skirmishes like that, and sometimes I use some of my D&D stuff and do an underground adventure with the actual miniatures, and then for each room I'll roll an encounter thing, and then I'll roll on the wandering monster chart. Some rooms have stuff in it, and some rooms don't. And you don't really have to create like a really detailed chart. You could use a 1d4 or a 1d6. Everything doesn't have to be on a 20-sided die. So then you can do adventure like that, where you're doing kind of a dungeon crawl thing using the Frostgrave rules and components. One thing I do recommend, though, if you do that, take one member as a pack mule, and that way you can actually carry some treasure without taking the penalties so much. Another thing I did was basically I did a scenario where it was a flipped over frozen ship in the river, because remember there is a river next to the city. So I ventured inside of a ship, so that was a fun solo adventure that I designed for myself. Another thing too is that basically kind of think outside of the box and create scenarios for yourself. And Frostgrave has a lot of room for solo play. Now, one aspect that I think a lot of people miss out is they assume that they should just do a 2-player game with Frostgrave. I actually like 3 And 4-player games, because it gets cutthroat, because one war band will ally with another war band, and then they'll stab each other in the back and attack, and it just gets to be a great social interaction, because though people may team up, everybody's out for themselves in the long run. So I recommend playing character multiplayer games with this, and sometimes basically even in a 2-player game, some of my scenarios there'll be a mini warband of monsters. If you have a favorite monster type where you can find different ways that they're armed, where they're similar to how the actual humans are armed, um, create a little warband to throw into the mix, and just have them come on the table at a set turn, and especially if you have teleporter type discs on the table. That way it kind of mixes it up and spread the treasure out. Now, one thing that you do need to do for a multiplayer game, because especially when your wizards are lower level, uh, for every participant or player that you have, you should scale up the treasure. I think there's usually 4 to 6 treasure tokens normally in a game. So basically, if there's 4, put 2 more. If there's 3, put 3 more for every player that you have. That way, you get people running across the board and running off the table for the treasure and stuff like that. So, when using multiple players, that's probably the best way to go. And you're also going to want to scale up the monsters. Usually what I do is I roll 1d4, and whatever that shows up, unless it's something that's pretty powerful, like a large construct or a worm or a snow troll or something like that, um, I'll have 1 to 4 of those creatures show up. Or you can have, this is also interesting too, uh, for every person that is participating in the game, roll for a random monster. So, not so much for 2-player games, but, roll twice if there's 3, roll 3 times if there's 4, and you can do it like that. And also, um, I also like to do something where certain locations will have monsters in them no matter what, but, usually put a treasure token in there too. Make it worth their while. Excuse me. I'm getting over a cold today, so my throat's kind of sore. So that's all, good ideas for multiplayer type games. Now let's talk about scenario ideas. One thing that I've been wanting to do is the town that Frostgrave takes place in is kind of turning in an industry. So I've made, a place, a stable. There's a few fortified bars and inns. And Frostgrave, the bar fight is pretty awesome. That got really bloody really quick, but it is a really good idea. If the author of the actual game actually ever watches this video, that would be a nice supplement. But there's I have we've role played the actual shops where you buy the items and things like that. Just because there's the aspect of the war game part doesn't mean that you can't role play the part when you got multiplayers. So add a little role play always freshens up the game and stuff like that. Now, let's talk more about scenarios. So, the bar fight one was really good. Other scenarios is monster invasions. Now that, at least in my Frostgrave games where there's more establishments, you can have like an orc invasion or something like that. That's always nice. Uh, Another thing too is, when your wizards get high enough, basically raid each other's home bases. You know, and you know, have one wizard raid the other wizard's home base. Have the apprentice hanging out at the wizard's normal thing, and have the wizard start the board out on one other edge and get there. You know what I'm saying? Kind of like a reserve thing. That's an interesting game. Um, let's see what's other scenarios that I've thought of. Uh, Basically, with each of the different wizards and stuff like that, um, you can find ideas where, say, like you have a witch character as a bad guy, as an NCP. I've got these like pumpkin guys that are made out of plants from Ralpartha. So, um, kind of like the Thaw of the Lynch Lord, you can develop a whole campaign around a different character class, where you guys are attacking a more powerful wizard. And you can segment that into different games. Other scenarios that are really good is basically your wizards are trying to do a bounty hunter type of thing where you have like a powerful captain or a wizard and a captain or a small war band of guys where you're just supposed to hunt down a certain individual. Um, that's a good idea for a scenario. So, uh, as far as dungeon crawls, look to the world of Dungeons and Dragons. There's tons of ideas for scenarios there. Um, Another one too is not only can you raid like someone else's wizard's place, you could raid like an enchanter's thing where he has magical weapons and constructs and stuff like that. So that's also a good idea. All in all, man, the playability of this game is absolutely awesome because you're really only limited to your imagination and the amount of hard work you want to do to put into the um, terrain. And, you can do things where, like, old set of caverns have defrosted, uh, and do like an underground version with caverns. Caverns are just painted cardboard. If you don't really like to paint, a little white glue and water and some sand and rocks and stuff like that. You cut out the shapes that you want and add features, make stalagmites out of toilet paper tubes. You know, it's just, you're really only limited to your imagination. Um, Another thing too, going up against the cult and priests and stuff like that, that's always a really good scenario. Um, One thing too is if you want to do like a campaign, have like a multi-pieced artifact where, say, like it was like a 7-piece staff that different pieces are in different parts of the city, and say like it's a 2-player game, and one guy's got 3 parts of the staff and the other guy's got uh, 4 parts of the staff. Then you do the raid to raid the wizard's tower one, to get the staff, or have a, just an ultimate fight, or you can do trades for like different magic items and things like that. So basically, you're just totally limited to your imagination. If you played Frostgrave and it got a little bit stale, and you played through all the books and stuff like that, by God, create something that's all your own. And I think it's just as much fun as like playing Dungeons and Dragons. You got the wargaming aspect. It's the best of both worlds, and I absolutely love this game. So, if you guys got any ideas that you'd like to see me do in a battle report, let me know. And please, everyone, like and subscribe to the videos. Check out my other Frostgrave stuff. It's not just the same old, same old. And like and subscribe, and may the dice be with you.